The flour is still on my hands when he comes in. I can feel the grit of it in the creases of my knuckles, dry and cold in a way I didn't expect. The kitchen smells like wood smoke and something scorched at the edges, something I burned this morning and couldn't quite fix. Outside, a horse moves against the fence. I can hear it, that one low sound in all that silence. The lantern throws a yellow circle on the table, and I am standing inside it, and I do not know what I am doing here. Not in this kitchen, not in this dress, not in this life I said yes to 3 weeks ago in front of everyone I had ever known. He doesn't speak when he comes in. He washes his hands at the basin, and I watch his back and I think, does he know? Can he tell? The bread didn't rise right. The butter came out wrong. I have been awake since 4:30 in the morning, and I am 19 years old, and I have never been this tired, and I have never been this alone in a room full of people. And I did not know, I genuinely did not know, that this was what waiting felt like. I was 19. My name is Sarah, and this is Quiet Leaving. If these stories feel like something you need, subscribing is free and it keeps them coming. And tell me in the comments, did anyone prepare you for what your life would actually look like? Nobody told me the rule out loud. Nobody sat me down and explained it. But I had watched enough women move through enough kitchens to understand it in my body before I ever had words for it. The wife holds the house. The husband holds the world outside it. That is the order. That is the shape of things. It goes back further than anyone I knew could trace, rooted somewhere in scripture, somewhere in tradition, somewhere in the particular silence of a community that trusts obedience more than questions. I absorbed it the way you absorb cold air. You don't decide to feel it. It just gets in. And the part nobody tells you, the paradigm bomb buried inside all that quiet, is that a life organized entirely around someone else's needs can look, from the outside, exactly like peace. His name was Eli. My older sister Ruth had pulled me aside 3 weeks before the wedding. She held my hands. She said 11 words. I counted them afterward, standing alone in the dark. 11 words for everything that was coming. Our mothers hadn't said more. There was no book. There was no conversation that went past the surface of things. Eli was 22 and serious in the way that young men are when they have been told their whole lives that seriousness is godliness. He wasn't unkind. I want to say that clearly. He was not unkind. He was just as unequipped as I was, handed the same silence from a different angle, and neither of us knew enough to know what we were missing. The bedroom was small. That is the first thing I remember noticing, really noticing, on that first night. The ceiling was low, and the window had no curtain yet, and through it I could see one tree, bare, moving a little in the wind. There was a quilt on the bed that his mother had made. I remember the pattern, blue and white, squares inside squares, and I focused on it the way you focus on something when you are trying to stay inside your own body. The lamp was turned down low. He stood near the door the way a person stands when they are not sure if they are allowed to come further into the room. He looked like a boy who had been handed something fragile and hadn't been told how to hold it. What happened next I will tell you plainly, because plainness is the only thing that's ever helped me. We were two people in a room together who had been taught that bodies were sacred and shameful at the same time, and we had no language for what we were supposed to do with that. At one point I said, quietly, "I don't know what I'm doing." He said, "Neither do I." That was the most honest thing spoken between us in those first weeks. My hands were shaking and I didn't understand why, and I thought that was my fault, some flaw in my faith, some weakness in me. I thought if I were a better woman, a more prepared woman, it would feel different. I carried that thought for a long time before I learned it wasn't true. Neither of us understood that what we were both experiencing had a name, that bodies respond to unfamiliarity with tension, with guardedness, with a kind of protective closing off that is not failure. It is just biology doing what biology does. But we had no one to tell us that. The Ordnung covered almost everything: dress, worship, work, the management of the outside world. But it did not cover this. And so the harm wasn't cruelty. The harm was a vacuum. The harm was two people reaching for something in the dark and not knowing what it was supposed to feel like, and each one privately concluding they were the broken one. That is a specific kind of loneliness, the kind that sits between two people in the same bed. I learned to move through the mornings quietly. I learned that if I was busy enough, if my hands were always in something, dough or water or fabric, I didn't have to stay inside the feeling. I learned to sleep near the edge of the bed. I would lie there in the dark and think about a version of my life I couldn't quite picture, but could almost feel at the edges, something softer, something where I understood what was happening inside my own body. I did not know that version was possible. I had not been given evidence that it existed. By the time spring came, I had stopped looking for it. There was a woman in our district named Miriam, older than me, married 11 years. We beat rugs together one afternoon in March, that particular cold that gets into your shoulders, and she said something so quietly I almost missed it. She said, "The first year is the hardest." I almost said something back. I had it right there, a whole sentence ready. I opened my mouth. I closed it. Because I didn't have the words. I didn't know what I was trying to say. I just knew that I was tired in a way that sleep wasn't fixing, and that Miriam's eyes had something in them that looked like recognition. Her daughter, a girl of maybe 15, brought us coffee in tin cups. 4 months later, she was engaged. The word I found, years after I left, was the word consent. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like something from a different world. And it was. It absolutely was. I was sitting in a small office with a woman who had a diagram on her whiteboard, and she was explaining something so basic, so foundational, that when it landed, I had to put my hand on the chair arm to steady myself. Not because it was violent, because it was so simple. Because it named something I had lived inside for years, without knowing it had a name. I wasn't angry. I want to be clear about that. I was just sad. Devastatingly, quietly sad. For the girl who had stood in that low-ceilinged room, with her hands shaking, thinking she was the broken one. For Eli too, equally unprepared, equally let down by the same silence, equally deserving of something better than a vacuum where knowledge should have been. We were both prisoners, just different cells. I still carry things from that life. I want you to know that. The sound of horses before sunrise, that low breathing in the cold. Bread made in a wood oven, the crust of it, the weight of a real loaf in your hands, the particular quality of a community that knows your name, every version of your name, across every year of your life. Those things are real, and I carry them, and I will carry them until I die. But I also carry this. I was handed a life I had not been prepared to understand. And silence, dressed as holiness, is still silence. Both of those things live in me. I have stopped trying to choose between them. If you grew up somewhere your own body was kept from you like something dangerous, something that needed to be managed rather than understood, I see you. I see you, and I am not going to ask you to be grateful for what was beautiful while you are still grieving what was withheld. You survived something, and surviving is enough. You are not broken. You are just not told. There is a difference, and it matters, and I need you to let that difference land. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you felt listening to this. What landed? What opened something up? What made you think of your own story? There is so much more I haven't said yet. I am just getting started. If you want to stay for what comes next, subscribe to Quiet Leaving. These stories exist because you keep showing up for them. And I'll leave you with this. Your body was always yours. You just weren't told.